Hey, Rollie.
What's up, Nicole?
We got it all wrong. I saw an educational meme on Facebook that said not only are things not getting hotter, but we're actually experiencing global cooling.
Ah, and you took this to heart?
Super to heart. It's a meme.
Oh, okay. Well, I actually have another educational meme in the form of a 1-hour podcast that says that's not the case.
Can we has cheeseburger?
Get the fuck out. Global cooling, Nicole. Just off the top of your head, have you ever heard of global cooling before?
Only when I have done research for this podcast.
Ah, okay. So it hasn't crossed your desk.
Not organically.
Okay, gotcha. Well, global cooling is, like all these climate myths, my favorite one. I love the concept of global cooling. It is so demonstrably wrong, and it's also got a really fun and obvious origin story.
Oh, cool.
And nighttime story, whatever. What's the opposite of the, and that's how he died, and then you flip your tie over your shoulder and you walk off into the...
I have no idea what you're trying to...
Yeah, me neither. It's clear when it was over. And then it kind of popped back up again. We'll see. All right, let's get into it.
Naomi Oreskes of Merchants of Doubt calls those zombie myths, I think, where they die for a little while and then they come back to bother us.
You know those bothersome zombies always trying to get into your house to stay a little too long.
This is a debate that, look, this is not a horror movie podcast, but I'm not that scared of a zombie invasion. I'm going to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. If it's the fast World War Z zombies, then we've got a problem. But Night of the Living Dead is only scary because they're trapped somewhere and they don't know what is going on with the rest of the world. But
that's true. It does not make sense that once your body is pretty fucked up and decomposing, you're suddenly incredible at running and jumping and your athleticism shoots through the roof.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
You know what else doesn't make sense?
What?
Global cooling.
Hell yeah. Way to pull us back. Although there is a nugget of truth. So global cooling, like all great climate myths, starts with a little bit of actual facts and then ricochets into just fakeville.
Got it.
We're going to go back in time a little bit. I'd like you to please read this quote here.
Circumstances affecting the heat of the sun's rays. Quote, an atmosphere of that gas, carbon dioxide, would give to our Earth a high temperature.
That's right. So we're basically seeing carbon dioxide and temperature are linked. More carbon dioxide, a higher temperature. This is global warming in a nutshell. When do you think that quote was from?
Well, I think that guy gave his testimony in the late 70s, early 80s. So I'm going to say 1975.
This is August 23rd, 1856.
Ooh.
This is Eunice Foote. Her middle name is Newton. So Eunice Newton Foote. Like Olivia Newton-John, I guess, now that I'm thinking about that. The 1850s. Okay. The realization that carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas that traps infrared radiation or some kind of heat and re-radiates it back to the area it's trapped in. This is a pretty well understood concept as early as the 1850s.
Okay. Wow. Even earlier than I thought.
Yeah. And so now we're kind of marching forward into the future. 1938, a paper called The Artificial Production of Carbon Dioxide and Its Influence on Temperature. So this is another notch in the belt of carbon dioxide leading to global warming. This is published by a scientist named Guy Callender.
That sounds like he was in a Inquisition and he had something to hide and they were like, what's your name? Me, I'm Guy, looks around the room, Calendar.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Penn Badgley's name is a pothead who's been asked what their name is by a police officer. And he looks at the police officer's shirt and is like, Penn Badgley. I think Guy Callender to me sounds like a guy who's like, is the party tomorrow? That's right, April 19th. Fucking Guy Callender over here, Jesus. Yeah, so this is what I'm trying to do is establish a little bit of history with carbon dioxide leading to global warming. So we're kind of seeing this concept that if we happen to put a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere, it looks like it could have a pretty serious impact on the level of heat retained and the heat of the planet. Now I'm going to show you a a little bit of a graph here, and just go ahead and read the title of the graph and what the graph kind of looks like.
So the title of the graph is Global Average Temperature Compared to the Middle of the 20th Century. And it starts at 1880 and it goes through 2019 and it goes up. It goes from low average temperature to much higher average temperature.
That's exactly right. However, if you were to chop off the graph right before 1960, so what the scientists were sort of observing in the late 1950s, what would you see?
Oh, so if I were only to look at the graph from 1880 to 1960, it looks like it goes up for a hot second, but then it returns back down to normal-ish levels.
That's right. Yeah, so part of what global average temperatures do is they are increasing, but there is not a totally uniform increase. So sometimes it spikes up in heat and gets a little cooler, and then it spikes up again and gets a little cooler again. And scientists in the 1950s and early 1960s do not have the benefit of knowing what it is like now. You know, they didn't know that it was going to march up very, very fast heat-wise. And so they were sort of seeing a period of a little bit of cooling.
Yeah.
And actually, they were seeing what they thought was a period of cooling, but really a lot of their temperature bases were in the northern hemisphere because white people be doing science in the northern hemisphere. And so this contributed to them overrating the global average temperature by just the northern hemisphere temperature. And it seemed like the northern hemisphere's temperature was going down, but of course the globe is quite a big place. And it looks like hind casting, we were able to see that in the southern hemisphere, temperatures were increasing, not to the extent that it totally overwhelmed the negative temperatures in the northern hemisphere, but much less of a spike in cooling.
Got it.
All right, so this is the scene we set ourselves in. The temperature's been going up, and then in the 1950s appears to be going down a little bit. So climate scientists are trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. All right, that's the scene we're in. Now we have the late 1960s. We have Dr. Robert Charlson from the University of Washington. He's doing research on sulfate aerosols in the atmosphere and finds that if you've got sulfate aerosols in the atmosphere, it can produce a cooling effect.
Ah, the birth of geoengineering.
That's exactly right, Nicole. Wow. Are you looking at my paper? I actually don't have that written down because I have it in my brain already. But are you looking in my brain?
I don't have anything in my brain because my phone has turned it into Swiss cheese.
But you got your phone.
That's true.
So as long as nothing happens.
I got some Swiss cheese.
Holy shit. You're living the dream.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got some research into sulfate aerosols and aerosols in general. Now, of course, we all know about aerosols from...
the ozone layer?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we all know about aerosols from our own little place.
You phrased that as though I was supposed to have a specific answer for it.
I was just wondering where you knew aerosols from.
I know them from like Hairspray.
That's right. Yeah.
Not the musical, but the product.
I know them from Hairspray, the musical.
Okay.
There's that long song about aerosols. You love singing it. What was it? Aerosols.
Aerosols.
Yeah.
Let's talk some more about aerosols.
That's exactly right. So sulfate aerosols can produce a cooling effect by reflecting the incoming radiation from the sun back out into space. So the basic science behind climate change is we get our energy from the sun. The sun's rays come into the earth. A certain percentage hits the earth and is absorbed. That energy is re-radiated as infrared radiation and escapes back out to space. If we put greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, they do not absorb the incoming sunlight because that's in the UV visible spectrum, but they do absorb the infrared radiation, what should be outgoing energy. So we are retaining heat, where it's like putting blankets around the earth. You retain your heat.
Yeah.
Sulfate aerosols are higher up in the atmosphere, and they're able to reflect incoming sunlight. So instead of the sunlight being able to come in and strike the earth, sulfate aerosols reflect it back before it's even absorbed. They produce a cooling effect.
Got it.
Greenhouse gases warm the earth. Sulfate aerosols cool the earth.
Got it.
Now, in the 1960s, it was not clear which one had a stronger effect. So we're putting out greenhouse gases, and we're also producing aerosols. Aerosols are also produced by volcanoes. Aerosols are also produced by desert dust. And we're also putting out methane and putting out CO2, which are greenhouse gases. So it's unclear which one is going to have a bigger effect in the 1960s.
So aside from Hairspray, the musical, what are some examples of human aerosol emissions?
Great question. So we get aerosols when we burn coal. So they're pollutants. Yeah. You get sulfate aerosols when you burn coal.
Oh, aerosol is just a solution in the air?
Yeah.
Is that what it means?
Aerosol is a blanket term for suspended particulate matter in the air.
Okay.
The technical definition is an aerosol is a suspension of fine solid particles or liquid droplets in air or other gas.
Got it.
Sulfate aerosols specifically do reflect the sun's incoming radiation. There are a lot of other aerosols that reflect. There's a thing called black carbon, and that also has an impact on the sun's radiation. There's a lot of different things that can be suspended. No matter how hard I try, I cannot suspend myself in the air. No matter how hard I try.
You know who can?
Who?
Freaking Chris Angel Mind Freak.
God, that guy is a crazy magician.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Chris Angel.
Okay.
I one time saw him put himself through a wood chipper.
What?
And he was fine.
Well, I mean, putting yourself through a wood chipper is a good way of aerosolizing yourself.
Wow, that's true. God damn, Nicole.
I'm on
best in the biz
today.
at sticking the landing. All right, so we've got some people researching sulfates in the atmosphere and a lot of people researching carbon dioxide and sort of the classic global warming greenhouse gases.
Where are we in the timeline right now?
And this is about the late 1960s, early 1970s. Okay. So some papers are coming out that are like, maybe we'll have global cooling because of all this aerosol we're putting into the atmosphere. And the news cycle just jumps on it. They're like, we got to crank out stories. People need to read Time Magazine. Everybody loves Time Magazine. How did Time Magazine get popular? I really don't know.
Waiting rooms?
That's probably it. It's Time Magazine and highlights. I want Time Magazine to have the opposite cover can be like the front cover, but a little fucked up. And it's like, what's different? That's what I would like from Time Magazine. I didn't get that from Time Magazine. I got a different thing. In 1974, we get an article called Another Ice Age? ? And I'd like you to read this quote here.
As they review the bizarre and unpredictable weather pattern of the past several years, a growing number of scientists are beginning to suspect that many seemingly contradictory meteorological fluctuations are actually part of a global climatic upheaval. However widely the weather varies from place to place and time to time, when meteorologists take an average of temperatures around the globe, they find that the atmosphere has been growing gradually cooler for the past 3 decades. The trend shows no indication of reversing.
Thank you so much. So this is just a snippet of this article from Time Magazine. It goes on to cast doubt on the sentence it just said, but it said the sentence. I just would like to call your attention back to this part. A growing number of scientists are beginning to suspect. Okay? A growing number of scientists from 0 to like 3 are beginning to suspect. So like what the sentence that like is supposed to be kind of a smoking gun is just littered with qualifications. And it's Time Magazine puts this article out. They didn't have a sense that it might cause some friction in modern society. A guy tried to get out by 5 that day. He jotted down some shit that he saw in like a Popular Science and got out of there. That, I think, was how this article came to pass. Now, similarly, we get stories in Newsweek in 1975. We get stories in a lot of local newspapers. It's just kind of a fun topic to write about. Even in the 70s, it was important to like have a catchy title, and then you could say whatever the fuck you wanted because people would like read the whole article.
Sure,
and
even if they're not clicking on it, they're flipping through the index of the magazine.
That's right.
They need a little buzzy thing to put on the cover so that you buy the magazine at the airport or wherever.
Yeah. Name one other place people bought magazines in the 70s.
A magazine store.
Yeah. Magazines R Us.
Yeah.
Do you have last month's Newsweek? Nah. Now, because I love clips, I got a little clip for you from 1978. It features Leonard Nimoy. He was on a show called In Search Of. He was the narrator of this show. And basically, I think they had Leonard Nimoy, and they're like, what can we get Leonard Nimoy to do a bunch of different versions of? Let's write a show called In Search of Blank, and then we'll just fill in the blank with whatever we want. He'll narrate it. We can get 3 seasons out of it easy.
Great.
And so this is In Search of the Coming Ice Age.
In 1977, the worst winter in a century struck the United States. Arctic cold gripped the Midwest for weeks on end. Great blizzards paralyzed cities of the Northeast. One desperate night in Buffalo, 8 people froze to death in marooned cars. The brutal Buffalo winter might become common all over the United States. Climate experts believe the next ice age is on its way. According to recent evidence, it could come sooner than anyone had expected. At weather stations in the far north, temperatures have been dropping for 30 years. Seacoasts, long free of summer ice, are now blocked year-round. According to some climatologists, within a lifetime, we might be living in the next ice age.
What a soundtrack.
Yeah. First of all, fucking sound mix guy out of the office that day. They got a backup guy, and he lobbed it in and did not nail it.
Yeah, did not want to be able to hear Leonard Nimoy too well. He wanted you to work for it.
Do you think his girlfriend had a crush on Leonard Nimoy at the time? And he was just like, fucking Spock-ass motherfucker. And in any case, this is the sort of thing we're seeing. This kind of sensationalized piece is in the news.
Uh-huh.
And so people are watching popular programs like In Search of Blank, and they're getting a guy that everyone thinks is like a perfectly rational Nebulon. What is it? Vulcan?
Vulcan.
I knew it wasn't Nebulon. Okay, that's why I said it kind of funny. I knew it wasn't Nebulon. It was Vulcan the whole time.
Have you or a loved one been injured from ingesting Patriot powder or one of its byproducts? If so, you may be entitled to compensation.
Well, now that you mention it, yeah, all those freedom shards in my Patriot powder did cut into my stomach lining pretty bad. But look, I don't want to listen to some ad from a scammy law firm, Nicole.
Well, Rollie, in that case, you should sign up for our Patreon, where you can listen to every episode of the podcast ad-free.
Nicole, come on. People subscribe to the Patreon out of the goodness of their hearts because we've already provided them with so much great free content, and the Patreon helps us do that.
Fat chance, Rollie. If climate change has taught me anything, it's that people are selfish and will only do the right thing if they get something out of it. Which is why, in addition to ad-free episodes, our Patreon also has sweet, sweet exclusive bonus episodes. People want content, Rollie.
You need to give our listeners a little more credit. The real reason people want to sign up for the Patreon is that we spend a lot of time and effort on this podcast. We even pay extra researchers to help us make sure every episode is as airtight as I wish my tubs of Patriot powder were.
Come on, people are only going to want to subscribe to be part of an exclusive community of other patrons.
No, Nicole, I think people will subscribe because that's what helps keep the show completely independent.
They subscribe because they're selfish.
They subscribe because they're good people.
Look, no matter why you want to subscribe, go to patreon.com/deniersplaybook and get your greedy little hands all over that bonus content.
Or their generous hands.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's patreon.com/deniersplaybook. Okay, Nicole, I'm seeing we're supposed to do an ad for Eubularia.com. Eubularia. Oh, I think that's actually one of Tom Cruise's kids.
No, Rollie. Eubularia is the impact-focused media agency that helped us launch this podcast.
Oh my God, that's right. Those guys are great. They helped us get this very podcast off the ground.
This podcast?
Hell yeah, player. They consulted on our recording setups and our production workflows. They assisted with edits and distribution, and they were just incredibly helpful in letting us focus on trying to make the best content possible without having to get bogged down in all the annoying stuff that always gets in the way.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate not having to think about any of that.
I don't even know what most of that stuff is. And that's because Eubularia provides high-quality production support for both new and existing shows looking to connect with a wider audience and try to make a difference.
Because if your podcast is trying to make an impact, it shouldn't sound like it was recorded in a dumpster.
Learn more by heading over to eubularia.com.
Jesus, I have no idea how to even start spelling that.
Truly. But lucky for us, it's written down right here. It's JUBILARIA.com.
Got a story?
Yes.
Eubularia can help you tell it.
All right, so there's a lot of sensationalized news stories that are coming out in the mainstream media in the 1970s. But what do actual scientists, actual climate scientists in the 1970s have to say? Well, there is a big review of all the relevant scientific papers by Dr. Thomas Peterson. And of the 71 relevant papers published between 1965 and 1979, so the kind of time period when global cooling was on anybody's mind, any scientist's mind, of the 71 papers, 7 predicted some kind of global cooling. That's less than 10% of the papers. So 7 of 71 predicted some kind of global cooling. 44 papers predicted warming, and 20 papers did not take a firm stance. You know the 9 out of 10 doctors agree?
Yeah.
This is less than 1 out of 10 doctors thought that there might be some kind of global cooling in the 70s. So this is not the scientific consensus. This is the deep, deep minority of climate scientists. This is before we have really any kind of computational ability. This is when sulfates were first sort of discovered. So in the background of potentially a dip in the global average temperature, only less than 10% of climate science papers had anything to do with global cooling.
Okay.
We get a lot of news stories about it because it's fun to write about. There was a really cold winter in the late 70s, but the scientific community did not think this was a thing. In 1978, climate scientists are getting access to better and better computers. There is a Royal Society of London meeting where Dr. B. John Mason has crunched the numbers using a supercomputer-assisted model. He finds that greenhouse gases have by far the largest effect on the climate, largest forcing effect. In 1979, the National Research Council puts out a whole report, doesn't even mention global cooling once. It is so far from everybody's minds after about 1978, it doesn't even really register in the National Research Council.
Got it.
So after 1979, climate scientists have basically written off this concept of global cooling as not as strong as global warming and therefore not likely to overwhelm the warming force that greenhouse gases are producing.
Got it.
So this is from 1980 basically onward. Done and dusted. Global cooling settled. We don't need to think about global cooling ever again until maybe a future scientist discovers that, like, if you eat an Altoid and then drink a glass of milk, it freezes your brain. And so maybe we can use that to globally cool or something. What's the thing? Like, you eat an Altoid and you like blow it into somebody's nose or something?
I have no idea
Are
what
you
you're
kidding?
talking
What
about.
did you do in middle school? We just fired Altoids at each other. That was our favorite thing to do.
I don't know, man. I think I like went to school.
Like a dork. Anyway, hold on a second, Nicole.
Okay.
Because now is the year 1997, and I would like you to read this quote. And please remember that no serious scientist in 17 years has considered global cooling a reasonable explanation for what's going on in the globe. And also, temperature data-wise, the temperature is going right back up. So
yeah, looking at this bar graph you showed me earlier, very clearly, substantially, the temperature's going up.
Right. After about 1970, the little dip that we've registered has undipped itself, and it's back into the Redville. So please read this quote from Exxon chairman and CEO Lee Raymond in 1997.
Okay. In fact, one period of cooling occurred from 1940 to 1975. In the 1970s, some of today's prophets of doom from global warming were predicting the coming of a new ice age.
Uh-oh, it's back.
Dun, dun, dun.
And now please go ahead and read the quote from 2001, an ExxonMobil media statement.
Although there is no consensus about long-term climate trends and what causes them, it is clear that the weather is always changing. During the 1970s, people were concerned about global cooling.
Wow. That is a fucked up thing to say in 2001. This is after the 1977 Exxon meeting with Dr. James Black, when he called the Exxon executives into a room and was like, hey, climate change is real and it's happening. This is after a ton of research that Exxon has already done to verify that climate change is happening and global warming is linked to greenhouse gases, specifically fossil fuel emissions. They've kind of pivoted to a denial strategy at this point, and this is a very obvious way to try to dig back into the past and find some reason why their product is not causing the world to warm. And so they're like, oh, yeah, in the 70s, all these freaking climate scientists thought it was cooling. So I guess that's what's going on.
But even in the era that they're talking about, like, it was 10%, right?
Less than 10%.
Less than 10%.
And
I'll give him the one.
Sure.
Maybe that guy.
Let's say 10%. Yeah, maybe he slept in and didn't make the poll that day. So this is like a deep minority of climate scientists, but we're already seeing a rewriting of the past to sort of exacerbate a disagreement that wasn't really a valid one. It's both sidesing this issue that did not have equal weight on both sides. And now we're going to 2003, and this is Senator James Inhofe.
Of Snowball fame.
Of the Snowball fame. 12 years before he famously brings a snowball onto the floor of Congress to talk about how global warming is fake.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is James Inhofe on C-SPAN in the year 2003.
Global warming is a hoax?
You know, I really think it is. I've watched this dialogue take place. I've watched the politicians talking about it, and they all want to outdo each other and talking about how bad this thing is. And I'm old enough, now Connie, you're not, but I'm old enough to remember just 25 years ago when the same exact people were concerned because the Earth is cooling. And here I have the Time magazine for June 24th, 1974. However widely the weather varies from place to place and time to time, when meteorologists take an average temperature around the globe, they find the atmosphere has been gradually cooling for the past 3 decades. So you have these extremists, these alarmists, are always finding something wrong. Either it's getting too cool or it's getting too warm, and they do them both.
All right, so that's the quote. Love that he's openly saying global warming is a hoax. It's a nice thing for him to say. But to say that, like, the same people were all saying it was cooling and now they're saying it's warming.
But they weren't. It was 10% of scientists were saying maybe it seemed like it might be cooling.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's not accurate to say that the scientists were confused about it, but now that James Inhofe was on the record in 2003, that can be sourced as evidence for the scientists being confused about it. So that's 2003. And then as early as 2008, we're getting shit like this. And I would like you to describe what you're holding.
I'm looking at a cover for Time magazine with a little penguin on it from April 8th, 1977. Oh, so now we're going back in time to when the 10% of scientists thought that maybe there was global cooling. Got it. And the headline on the front underneath this happy penguin is How to Survive the Coming Ice Age. 51 things you can do to make a difference. Wow, good on the writers of Time magazine for coming up with 51. Filled a lot of pages.
I mean, if they were phoning it in, it would have been 50. It would have been a nice round number, but they actually found all 51 answers. Okay. So it kind of seems like Time magazine was even a little more emphatic about, I mean, that's a cover story about the coming ice age. All right, go ahead, and this is now a meme I'm showing you, and it's hard to describe a meme, especially a shitty fucking right-wing hack meme.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's just text city.
Where do I even start? Okay, so the left side of this meme is the Time magazine cover that I just described to you from 1977, and in impact font it says 1977 over it. And then the right side of the meme is 2008, and it's a Time magazine cover that is a parody of the famous image of soldiers raising the flag at Iwo Jima. And the headline for that one from 2008 is How to Win the War on Global Warming.
Right.
So they're
contrasting.
Contrasting. They're contrasting How to Survive the Coming Ice Age in 1977 and in 2008's How to Win the War on Global Warming.
So without any like block text at the top and the bottom, what is the point of this meme?
Without even reading the block text, there's two options. One, maybe we did such a good job fighting global cooling that we went too far in the other direction.
They gave us so many ways to make a difference.
They should have stuck to 50.
They should have stuck to 50. That extra way really ruined global cooling.
But I think the more likely thing is they're just trying to say that scientists are hypocrites and we're always changing our opinions about what it is. And then the meme text.
Oh, man.
So the top of the meme says, the liberal answer then is the same now. People with jobs need to send more of their take-home pay to the liberal politicians for redistribution.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine that the person who made this meme gave this a second draft. I mean, it just sort of like lobbed in like communism and like the dog whistle for unemployed, poors. And
I mean, again, like even assuming that their premise is correct, like we need more context for each of these stories.
Funny
because maybe
you should say that, Nicole.
Because maybe each of the stories is like, here's 51 free ways that you can fight global cooling or whatever.
And that is assuming they are right in any of their premises. Let me present Exhibit B or whatever exhibit this would be in the particular trial. Please describe what I just handed you and what the fuck is going on.
This is wild. So I am looking at a side-by-side of two very similar looking Time magazine covers, one of which is the one I just told you about, How to Survive the Coming Ice Age, and the other of which I can tell is the real one because the fonts on this one match the like Time magazine style guide, and I didn't notice before that the font that they used on the other one doesn't. So
and it's a lot higher res, by the way.
Yes, it's much higher res, and this one, the real one, is from 2007, and the original one was mocked up to be supposedly from 1977.
So in the 2007 one, it's a picture of a penguin, same picture of the penguin.
Mm-hmm. So in the fake version that was in the meme, the cover story was How to Survive the Coming Ice Age. And in the real magazine from 2007, the headline is The Global Warming Survival Guide, 51 Things You Can Do to Make a Difference. And they really tried to sell it because, so in the real version, the 2007 version, the little stories at the top of the magazine are called Living with Cancer, The Changing Science, Beyond Baghdad, Where the Enemy Has Its Own Surge, and The Sopranos' last song, What Exit Will Tony Take? But then they couldn't have those same stories and photographs for the 1977 version.
Especially in 1977, it would have been a huge spoiler to know
that Tony was on his way out. Yeah. And so instead, they got a lower res, older photo from the 70s for Living with Cancer, The Changing Science. Instead of saying Beyond Baghdad, it says Beyond Détente, Why We Can't Beat the Soviets. And then instead of What Exit Will Tony Take from The Sopranos, it's MASH, What Exit Will Frank Take?
Imagine the lazy 1970s remembering that you would have to do to be like, well, that's not Baghdad. Who are we fighting? The Soviets. Yeah. And then
also, weren't we deep in Vietnam at that point, or was Vietnam over?
I don't think they're that concerned with historical accuracy, given the fact that they just photoshopped a lie onto a Time magazine cover to emphasize a confusion that didn't really exist. I don't understand what motivated them to make this fake magazine cover. I mean, there was a Time article that intimated that maybe there was a coming ice age, but they couldn't even use the article. They had to lie that there was a cover story on Time magazine that was a definitive, all the scientists are saying global cooling is coming, so that they could juxtapose it against an actual Time cover about global warming and the current scientific consensus. And by the way, they keep copies of Time magazine. It's not like they throw them in the dumpster and like Men in Black mind erase everybody's brains. Like,
no, they keep them in the room in my basement where my dad refuses to throw out any of his old magazines.
And thank Christ that Steve Conlan did not throw this magazine out, because now we can fact check that, in fact, Time magazine did not have a cover story about surviving the coming ice age. This is a faked thing meant to erode confidence in climate scientists. And just like a final point, This was a nuanced discussion that climate scientists were trying to have in the 1970s about like a pretty technical thing. Does a sulfate aerosol reflect UV vis more than a greenhouse gas absorbs infrared radiation? Like this is not a dumb discussion. They really didn't know definitively. Most of the climate scientists felt that it was greenhouse gases. A couple were like, maybe it's this sulfate thing. They discovered it was greenhouse gases and they moved on. And now we're seeing this like hacky, somebody threw it together on Photoshop, did not do a spectacular job. And now we're like still combating this weird disinformation that keeps cropping up on the internet, including in 2019. It went viral again when Ted Nugent posted this on his Facebook page. It got like something like 8,000 shares, but this is continually popping off on various uncles' Facebook page to be like, see, climate scientists don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's just a lie, and it's meant to diminish your confidence in them.
Gotcha.
Is there something that you hate so passionately you would make a full PowerPoint presentation just to convince other people you're right?
Do you have a petty grievance that you'd like to nuclear bomb with the kind of argument usually reserved for a PhD thesis?
If you've got something you want banned forever, you might want to check out Abolish Everything, a new show streaming now on Nebula.
Look, there are a lot of serious problems that we'd like to remove from society, but this is more like people who stand up right when the airplane lands, or those weird little washing instructions they put on your clothes. Even if I did know what those symbols meant, I'm not doing 8 separate loads of laundry.
It's a Wild West showdown where comedians argue about annoying things that they'd like to erase from existence, and a live audience gets to make the final call.
Abolish Everything is only on Nebula, and it's just one of the many stellar originals you'll get when you sign up.
We're talking early access, no ads, and a growing library of exclusives. And you know what else is on Nebula? Our podcast.
Oh, shit, that's right. And wait, there's more. My other show, Climate Town, is on there too.
You have another show?
So if you want to check out some Nebula originals like Abolish Everything, go to nebula.tv/deniersplaybook to get 40% off. That's just $36 for the whole year or $3 a month. Join Nebula and start watching now.
And watch Abolish Everything exclusively on Nebula. By now, you guys have probably figured out that I'm a real urban planning freak, and that's because I believe it is one of the best levers we have for fighting climate change while improving people's quality of life. And if you want to improve your quality of life and keep up with the latest in the fight against our auto-dominated dystopia, I highly recommend you check out another podcast we love, The War on Cars. I even have one of their hosts, Doug Gordon, here with me to tell you about it.
Hey, Nicole, I'm Doug Gordon, and I co-host The War on Cars with Sarah Goodyear. And we talk about the way cars affect everything, from the way we design our cities to prioritize traffic over people, the way cars are mythologized by the media, you name it. We even have some celebrity friends who come on every now and then and talk about the ways in which they're moving away from cars.
And when you say celebrity, I assume that you're referring to me.
Yes, Nicole, that is exactly who I'm referring to. Yes, you.
Nice.
We release new episodes twice a month, and we have a monthly Patreon episode that goes out too.
Now that's the kind of consistent, reliable schedule I wish we could get out of our transit system.
From your mouth to God's ears, Nicole.
So you at home, pull out your podcatcher. Right now, I can see you. And subscribe to the War on Cars podcast. You can thank me by doing one of those little waves that people do when you let them merge.
No, Nicole, that is what you do when you're in a car getting onto a highway. So please don't do that.
The War on Cars, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, Nicole, I would be remiss if I didn't hit this last point. There is one more time that this fake Time Magazine global cooling cover story hit the news cycle. I'd like you to please read this Politico article.
Okay, the headline of the article is How Trump Gets His Fake News, and the picture looks, I think he's just blinking or looking down, but it looks like he is on the phone and has fallen asleep.
Classic.
Okay, May 2017. White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus issued a stern warning at a recent senior staff meeting. Quit trying to secretly slip stuff to President Donald Trump. Just 2 days earlier, KT McFarland, the Deputy National Security Advisor, had given Trump a printout of 2 Time magazine covers. One, supposedly from the 1970s, warned of a coming ice age. The other, from 2008, about surviving global warming, according to 4 White House officials familiar with the matter. Trump quickly got lathered up about the media's hypocrisy, but there was a problem. The 1970s cover was fake, part of an internet hoax that circulated for years. Staff chased down the truth and intervened before Trump tweeted or talked publicly about it.
Wow.
I want to watch a movie about the Mission Impossible level team that has to dive in front of Trump when he's getting a meme.
It's the Secret Service, yeah, the thought police or something. The thing that I love about this is that it's like a middle school where okay, if you try to slip something to Trump, I'm going to read it out in front of the entire White House, okay? That's really how it felt to me. But it turns out that Trump has tweeted this sort of thing in the past. I would like you to read that tweet.
Okay, so this is a tweet from 2013.
This is 4 years before he got lathered up about the Time magazine cover.
This is Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump.
You're slating for an audition?
Yes. This is Nicole auditioning for Donald J. Trump. Surprise! 1970s global cooling alarmists were pushing same no-growth liberal agenda as today's global warming.
That was beautiful. That was very well done.
Thank you.
So it turns out he already had heard the global cooling hoax and already believed it.
Yeah,
so,
he didn't need the new meme.
Yeah, he just needed to get a little lathered
This was
up.
also before that infamous ride down the escalator where he announced his presidency.
Oh.
So this was a long time ago.
This was just him, a free agent, Donald Trump. Now, I wish to fucking hell we were done with this story, but this is a 2023 episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, where global cooling rears its ugly head yet again.
Wow, podcast within a podcast.
Now, remember, this is 43 years after the globe's climate scientists had already dismissed global cooling as not a thing.
Okay.
So here it is.
It's pretty wild.
You guys are freaking me the fuck out, man.
Hey, can you, this is text Elon real quick. He knows. He talks about no writing before 10,000 years, and then he's saying it afterwards, and he's talking about deep, deep rabbit hole. I listened to what he says. He's careful with his words.
I'm sorry, Elon Musk is careful with his words. This is the guy who made a joke and then had to buy Twitter for $44 billion. I can't think of somebody, with the exception of maybe Donald Trump, who is less careful with their words.
Since we know there's been 5 interglacial periods over the last 450,000 years, this is the topic. You want to see something else? President Trump said it too.
What did he say?
He almost said Donald. He's like, no, I respect my president.
Who
Trump.
is this guy?
I have no fucking clue. The other guy is Joe Rogan. This is some guy who got on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Okay.
What did he say?
I have the video on my laptop. It's only 30 seconds long. If you YouTube Donald Trump on climate scientists, basically.
If you YouTube.
We have way fewer resources to make this podcast than Joe Rogan does. And we have the capability of playing videos.
We have the clip. They don't have the clip. He doesn't have the clip. I have the clip of him not having the clip. I also have the clip he's talking about. I have both clips. This man is on a multi-million-dollar podcast.
Yeah.
And we don't know his name. So I guess that's on us.
Climate scientists, basically, they were talking about global warming. And he basically interrupts and says, it's going to cool for us, though, isn't it? And the scientist is like, oh, that's not what the evidence shows. And he kind of laughs. He goes, I'm not so sure you know that.
Okay, do you remember the clip that he is referencing?
No.
It is California forest fire.
Oh, this is the raking the forests clip.
Got it. This is the California forest fire. Donald Trump says you have to clean the forests. And the officials from California are trying so hard to be on Trump's team.
Because they need federal money. They need federal money.
And so they're like, yeah, I guess I just got to hope that we use the forest cleaning with the science. And if we forget about the science, that's not going to be good. And then Donald Trump is like, I don't think the science knows, actually. And they're like, well, the science says it's going to get warmer because that's how global warming works. And Donald Trump's like, but it's going to get cooler. And the implication is because it's going to become winter. And this fucking guy thinks Donald Trump is talking about secret papers that only Donald Trump, has access to, that the climate scientists think it's actually going to get colder.
And I'm like, of course he would know. People are like, oh, Donald Trump's he's stupid. I'm like, he didn't just pull that out of his ass. He was
this
saying
when
something.
he was the president?
Yes, this was just a few years ago. This is probably his last year of his term. I have the clip on my laptop. It's a 30-second clip, or maybe 20 seconds. He said it's going to cool first, though, before, isn't it? And I'm like, I look at what Musk is saying and this evidence of the pole shift. I think that the true data on Earth is that the Earth is cold most of the time. That right now we should be grateful that it's nice and cozy because we can live when it's warm. But I think that the data might indicate that Earth is cold more often than it's hot.
Well, that's what Randall Carlson has said. And what Randall Carlson said that really freaked me out, he goes, global warming's not scary. He goes, global cooling
Is scary.
That's what's really scary. But we're so concerned with our own guilt and impact because of industrialized society and what sort of impact we're having on the climate and the earth and our air. And then there's this narrative that just gets repeated over and over and over again.
In all of these scientific experiments, we keep seeing this narrative from all of the experiments and papers that keep saying the same thing. What is it? It's a fucking conspiracy. That's what it is. That's the only explanation. So it's 2023 and we're still dealing with this bullshit 43 years later, and it's a real friggin' bummer.
Yeah. And because I don't hear about global cooling a lot in my circles, and I imagine a lot of our listeners don't either, I think it might be hard to conceptualize how big this is. But Trump tweeting and Joe Rogan's podcast are two of the biggest platforms in the world.
Sure. And you're not even mentioning the biggest one, Ted Nugent's Facebook page. The big three. It's wild because we probably don't clock how many people hear about this shit, but this is the Joe Rogan experience.
It is the most popular podcast in the world. Yeah.
When I say 1 million people listen to it, that's a deep underestimation of how many people actually listen to this, and they're getting exposed to global cooling. It's like a fire is rapidly spreading, and no matter how many fires you put out, it just keeps on propagating because people love to talk about bullshit.
But Rollie, how can there be fires if it's so cold from global cooling?
Ice fires, Nicole. Look it up. Hot, icy hot fires. Anyway, all right, so that is the story of global cooling. That is how the myth propagated. No serious scientist believes in global cooling now. It doesn't seem to matter. People are still trying to dredge up this old fucking Time magazine article from the 70s to promote that climate scientists are confused. They're not confused. They've been saying the same thing for, 150 plus years. The Earth is not cooling, the Earth is warming, but for some reason, we just cannot shake this zombie myth off.
Now, for the record, if this were a real zombie, I think it would be easier to fight off.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not scared of zombies. Vampires, they're scary.
God, if the zombie apocalypse happens, the movie of your life will be you on this podcast saying that I'm not scared of zombies, and then zombies will kill you.
Fine. If a zombie kills me, I deserve it because they're slow, they're stupid, they're easy to kill. Come on.
Some zombie is listening to this podcast right now and is just like, oh, fuck you, Nicole.
Our lawyers are going to get a letter from a zombie somewhere.
So is this misinformation or is this disinformation? I don't think there's ever going to be a more clear-cut case of it started off as actual scientists doing real science. And remember, scientists are allowed to be wrong. That's how science works. That's how scientific consensus can be reached. People have disagreements. They do experiments. You look at the results of the experiment. You conclude one way or the other.
That's why experiments have to be replicatable. You have to be able to do the same things that the first guy did so that you can do the experiment a bunch of times to see if the results hold up.
That's exactly right. And in fact, you can do this experiment a bunch of times. We're doing it, and the results are that global warming is happening and global cooling is not happening. And then those results are supported by the fact that we have this hottest fucking years on record year after year after year after year. These are all pieces of evidence that lead us to support the overwhelming conclusion. So it was misinformation in the sense that a lot of newspapers picked up the story to, get viewers, because that's how newspapers work. And then it became disinformation when people started photoshopping fake covers of Time magazine and reinterpreting the past. It's possible that some people reinterpreted the past because they just forgot what really happened, or they never knew, or it was never, fucking President Nixon didn't come out and be like, okay, by the way, don't forget, we don't think it's global cooling anymore. Damn it, checkers, get out of my office. That didn't happen, because that doesn't happen, because that's not how the news works. And so maybe no one heard that this myth was put to bed, but
I think if you're photoshopping a magazine cover, then you're pretty squarely in the realm of disinformation.
I think so too. And I think it's easy for disinformation to become misinformation when
you're at a party and you're like, oh, did you hear about this thing?
Yeah, when you're Jay Leno at a party.
You hear this? You see about this?
Yeah, so I think it's primarily misinformation for people who remember scientists being confused, and it is disinformation if you're actively lying and photoshopping.
Yeah.
If you're in Photoshop, that's disinformation.
That is a podcast rule. That's a new rule of the podcast.
New rule. It's on Bill Maher. New rule. If you have to wear shin guards under your socks, you're not a real sport. New rule. Sorry, that's my Bill Maher impression.
It's pretty good.
Thank you. Okay, Nicole, you're at a Thanksgiving dinner, and your cousin brings along a new boyfriend to the dinner.
It's his first year at Thanksgiving dinner.
Year,
he's meeting everyone for the first time.
And you'd think he would try to make a good impression, but he's wearing a Disturbed t-shirt. And
I mean, he's making a good impression on me.
Airwalk shoot. Maybe that's why you go talk to him. And he's like, okay, so he's kind of in the corner, not really paying attention.
Okay.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road.
Different band.
Yeah, you don't have to listen to the band that t-shirt you're wearing.
If you're a guy wearing a Disturbed shirt, I don't know that you're singing Green Day's sappiest song.
It was the Disturbed cover of that song.
Okay. Hey, Kaden.
Oh, what's up?
Hey,
I take off my Dolby headphones that go around the back of my neck and lock into my ears. Okay, what's up?
Hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name's Nicole. You're dating my cousin Ashley.
Oh, what's up? Oh, Ash, yeah.
Yeah.
Same girl? Same person? Ashley? Same?
Yeah. Have you just been calling her Ash? Her full name's Ashley.
Oh, whoa. Yeah, I guess that does make sense.
Yeah. Anyway, my name's Nicole. A little bit about me. I got this climate change podcast.
What's up? Hang on. Did you say climate change?
Yeah.
Oh, don't you know? I got an extra coat you can have if you need it, but it's actually global cooling. Well, here's the thing. Let me tell you about climate change podcasts. So a podcast is where people get on a microphone and talk into the microphone, and then they record it. And then a climate change is a hoax. Here's the thing. Climate scientists thought in the 70s that it was actually global cooling, and now they think it's global warming. It's like, get your story straight, guys. Jeez. You want to see me do a kickflip?
Honestly, I would love to see you do a kickflip to get out of this conversation.
I can't do one.
Okay, I thought that might be the case.
No one ever says yes. Shit. I gotta think of a new way to impress people.
Kaden, for a guy wearing wraparound headphones and a Disturbed t-shirt, you're really knowledgeable about climate change. But
thank you. I do my own research.
I can tell. Like the Disturbed t-shirt and the wraparound headphones, your view on climate science is a little bit stuck in the past.
Wow, you're the best in the biz.
Thank you so much, Kaden.
No problem. What are you saying? Stuck in the past?
So you're totally right that in the 1970s, some scientists were investigating it's been colder. Is global cooling happening? And then at the time, that maybe 10%, maybe a little less of scientists came to the conclusion that, yeah, it looks like global cooling is occurring. But then over time, those scientists' experiments have been done again and again, and they haven't been able to replicate the results. And now the broad consensus is,
I think instead of instead of replicating the results, I think it was more like these were postulates about the forcing effects of sulfate aerosols.
Kaden, you are a complex
What's
figure.
Up? Hell yeah. You want to see me swallow a goldfish?
No.
Oh, good. I can't do that either.
I also don't have a goldfish. We're at my house.
I got one. Don't worry. I got it in one of these pockets.
You do have big pants.
Hang on. I got a lot of pockets.
Anyway, so these were theories that the scientists that came up with.
Oh, shit. I forgot to TiVo House. Oh, no. I'll never know what happens. House is in a jail now.
Oh, okay. So after House goes to jail, he has to go to a mental institution, and Lin-Manuel Miranda is there.
My favorite rapper is Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Lin-Manuel Miranda team up, and they like... This is true.
How does a smart guy, doctor, dude with the pain addiction...
This has got off the rails.
Anyway, what's up?
Anyway, so the general consensus for a long time has been that global warming is definitely happening. And the people who thought it was global cooling, they were kind of postulating things that might have been causing the drop in temperature in the 70s. But since the 70s, the temperature has only gone up and up and up. Here, look, I'll pull up this chart on my phone and you can see. So here's the period that you were talking about in the 1970s when they did have a big cold snap. And that's when all those theories started. And then since then, we've seen the temperature pretty consistently increase.
Oh. The scientists didn't all think it was global cooling?
No, it was only 10% of them. And of those 10%, they were putting out early studies and postulating, but didn't necessarily have a definitive answer either.
Oh. You want to see me swallow a goldfish?
Jesus Christ, Kaden.
The Climate Deniers Playbook is hosted by Rollie Williams, that's me.
And me, Nicole Conlan. Our executive producer is Ben Boult, and our audio producer is Gregory Haddock.
Theme music from the wickedly talented Tony Dominic and artwork by Jordan Dahl.
Who, yes, okay, is my boyfriend, but that's not why we hired him. We hired him because he's very good at art. And our researchers are Knut Haraldson, James Krugnail, and Carly Rizzuto.
Surprise!